Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us live on NewsX. Our big focus this hour is on the Union Budget 2025. Yes, the first full-fledged government of Modi 3.0 has been presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. And we are, of course, focusing now on some of those key announcements. The FM today announced a credit boost for MSMEs, that is micro, small and medium enterprises, to generate employment, especially for young people. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called this the People's Budget to help enterprises achieve higher efficiency for scale, technology upgradation, better access to capital, investment and turnout limits for classification of all MSMEs is going to be enhanced to 2.5 and 2 times respectively. Now, this would not only pace the manufacturing sector, but would also provide employment opportunities for countless youth of the country. Joining us live now is Jayen Mehta, Managing Director Amul. He's live with us. Jayen Mehta, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we focus on this specific, that I just brought up on the MSME sector, I'd like to get your take, of course, on that in just a bit. But first, your overall sense of the budget. What did you make of what we've heard today from the Finance Minister?
Thank you so much. It's been a fantastic budget. From what we heard from Honorable Finance Minister, agriculture has been identified as an engine for growth. The budget did continue the earlier policies of focusing on the poor, on the youth, on the farmers, and also on the women. And we as dairy cooperatives are closely working with all these groups. But then the biggest boost this budget has given is perhaps to the middle class. So to these four, we have to add the fifth one, which is the middle class. And in form of middle class is the market. So if you put money in the hands of the customer, obviously that goes back to the producer. So this is one budget which is going to give a big boost to consumption. And we being in the food business, Amul has the largest food brand of India, largest FMCG with a turnover of more than 80,000 crores. In a market of dairy, which is the largest in the country, because milk is the largest agricultural crop of the country, and it was outlined in the economic policy document also yesterday, that in a dairy business of more than 11 lakh crores, or about $135 billion, Amul is $10-12 billion. And if consumers pay 100 rupees on Amul products, 80 to 85% goes back to the farmer. So this is where you will give a double benefit to both the production side, when the Kisan gets credit card, enhanced limit in that the credit limits, to other support which is given to boost agriculture, boost production, and more importantly, giving money hands of the wallets and the hands of the customers will boost the economy. And of course, the industry will grow, the farmer base and the producers will also grow, and it will bring in a much bigger multiplier effect to the economy than what normally books of accounts can show.
So as far as your sector is concerned, Mr. Mehta, you're quite pleased with the budget?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I said, because consumers, if they have more nutritious products, yes, which was also outlined by the Honorable Finance Minister, people are getting more conscious of food, what they eat. And there we come in as the most trusted brand in the country in most of these categories. I'm sure it will bring in a great benefit to the food sector, to the dairy sector, and of course Amul. And
do you also believe that consumer spends will go up because there's going to be more money in the pocket, thanks to, of course, the tax savings now that will also happen?
Exactly, because it's been said that the only thing certain in life is taxes and death. But here, to pay taxes, you will have to earn 13 lakh rupees. And so obviously it will motivate a lot of people to work hard, earn more. And of course, when you spend more, when you have more money, you benefit. So it's a win-win situation for both the producers, the consumers, and more importantly, the economy and the growth which we are looking at to become Viksit Bharat. I think this will be a very, very big booster. And obviously the impact of this is not just for 1 year. It will go on for decades, and that's what will bring in the desired benefits.
Now, of course, you're a cooperative that works very, very closely and directly with farmers, which is why I'd also like to, ask you to just elaborate a bit on the agriculture sector. Of course, you weighed in on that in your opening comment. But as far as the agriculture sector is concerned, do you believe farmers and, people in the agri sector would be pleased with this budget? Now, because the agriculture sector has been a point of contention, the opposition often takes pot shots at the government based on this sector in particular. But as far as farmers in this sector is concerned, would they be happy with this budget, you feel?
Yes, it will be beneficial for them because, as I mentioned, the budget speaks about agriculture as an engine for growth, and a lot of effort have been made to bring stimuli to this sector to keep growing the way the country grows. And the GDP has been supported by agriculture, which the numbers actually prove. More importantly, cooperatives have been identified as a tool for development of the farmers and bring them access to the market. The new Ministry of Cooperation has been taking several initiatives to strengthen the presence of cooperatives across the country. And today, when we hear the Honorable Finance Minister talking about the focus on exports, there is already a multi-state cooperative on exports, which is working to create a market for all the producers who are associated with cooperatives across the country. So all in all, it connects a lot of dots, puts in the focus where it is required, has a vision for the future, and more importantly, the right elements to connect the market with the producer and take care of the aspirations of the 46% of Indian population who still stays in villages, though they may be contributing only to 16-18% of our GDP.
Okay. I'd like you to also now weigh in on the MSME sector because this government has focused a lot on the MSME sector as well, and that's something we're focusing on in this segment. The MSME sector is very, very important because they directly also, provide employment by generating, of course, employment opportunities and jobs. And now this focus, this push for this sector through these announcements today is hopefully going to have a direct correlation with job creation, but also provide the sector a big boost, which will further add to the economy.
Yes, that's right. Because it's when MSME is the name which was given before we had the words like startup or the entrepreneurship coming in the common lingo. So this is where you are actually nurturing enterprise at the smallest level, then providing them with the capital which is required for growth, giving them access to the market and other support for handholding, encouraging them to use the latest tools, technologies, and take part in the growth of the country. So I think identifying MSMEs as the second growth engine also is a very visionary step, and I'm sure we'll see more and more initiatives in this space, both at the central and state level, to bring a big boost to the sector.
All right, Jayen Mehta, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us overall with your perspective, your sense of this budget of 2025. Let's quickly go across now and get our viewers some more details regarding, of course, this particular announcements that we're focusing on, and of course the emphasis on job creation and the MSME sector of this budget as well. So, of course, these were the big announcements today. Let's quickly recap them. A scheme will be launched for 5 lakh women, SC/ST, first-time entrepreneurs as well. This will be a big boost, of course, for women and, of course, members of the backward communities. Also, the scheme will provide term loans up to 2 crore rupees during the next 5 years to them. The scheme also includes online capacity building for entrepreneurship as well as managerial skills as well, something, of course, that will be very, very important, and will equip them, of course, with the skill sets needed for growth. Further announcement, full exemption of BCD to cobalt powder and waste, the scrap of lithium-ion battery, and 12 more critical minerals as well. This is again a big announcement for this particular sector. This will help secure their availability for manufacturing in India and also promote more jobs for our youth, but also importantly become a hub, hopefully, in our country for this particular sector. Also, multi-sectoral rural prosperity and resilience program will be launched in partnership with states as well. That's also something that the FM outlined today. This will address underemployment in agriculture through skilling, investment, tech, as well as invigorating the rural economy further. Also, the government will develop the top 50 tourist sites in partnership with states and extend mudra loans as well to homestays, so that there is further job creation as well through the hospitality industry. Also, medical tourism will be promoted in partnership with the private sectors as well. So all-encompassing budget there. Financial support also will be provided for Western Kosi Canal, benefiting 50,000 hectares in the Mithilanchal region in particular in Bihar as well. And of course, Bihar is a poll-bound state this year. We'll be voting later in the year. Also, revised classification criteria. Now, we are of course talking in particular about the MSME and startup sector. Revised classification criteria for MSMEs has been announced, with investment limits increased now 2.5 times. Also, turnover limits are doubled as well. So, the ambit of course grows there. Micro enterprises can now have investments up to 25 crore rupees and also a turnover of up to 10 crore rupees. So, that limit raised as well. Small enterprises limits have also been raised to 25 crores investment and a turnover of 100 crore rupees. Meanwhile, enhanced credit guarantee cover for MSMEs has been increased from 5 crore rupees to 10 crores as well. Enhanced credit guarantee is expected to generate additional credit of 1.5 lakh rupees, 1.5 lakh crore rupees rather, over the next 5 years alone. And a new micro enterprise credit card scheme with 5 lakh limits also will be launched. The provisions for that too have been laid out today. New micro enterprise credit card scheme targets 10 lakh enterprises in the first year alone. Also, a new focus product scheme of footwear and leather sector also aims to create employment for 22 lakh people as well. A new focus product scheme is expected to generate exports worth about 1.1 lakh crores. That's also something big that this budget has set out. A scheme for toy sector to focus on developing clusters and skills to create high quality products under the Make in India brand has also been envisioned. The government has announced a national manufacturing mission covering small, medium and large industries to further the Make in India initiative as well. Also, the National Institute of Food Tech, Entrepreneurship and Management will be established, in fact, in Bihar. Meanwhile, this will result in financed income to farmers, also advance employment opportunities for the youth of the nation as well. So, a lot of course in this budget as far as job creation goes, but also in particular for the MSME sector, startups. This is something that we've examined and we want to quickly now put across to our panel as well. Dr. Jaideep Bhattacharya is joining us live, President CDEPR. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, CEO of Q Gates Technology, also joins us live. Nasser Salim, banker, also live with us. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist. Let me quickly make a start with you first, Dr. Bhattacharya. As far as, of course, the MSME sector, startups are concerned, would they be pleased with the announcements in the budget today? Also, what kind of correlation is this hopefully going to have for furthering job creation in our country?
I think there is no reason for them to complain. All the asks and demands have been fulfilled to the extent that's reasonably possible. It's for now up to the startups and the small enterprises to grow. I think the other key dimension for the ask from startups and the smaller companies is what was captured in the economic survey, that please get out of the way, that the government should not be becoming a bottleneck. And I think many of the provisions are indicating that that's the way the government is going to double down on, and they are going to move out and therefore enable ease of doing business in many aspects, in terms of filing, in terms of compliances, in terms of taxation, and so on and so forth. There also been signaling in the budget that even the tax rates will be further rationalized, and I mean the indirect tax rates, which will be further rationalized. The Income Tax Act that's coming up, or the bill that's coming up, will also be further simplified. So for startups who really struggle and smaller companies, MSMEs who really struggle to do the compliances, to get the funds, to file all the requirements, I think this will be music to the ears. And on top of it, the fact that there is an enlarged fund of funds that has been allocated, that just means that there will be more money that will be trickling down to these enterprises, allowing them to grow faster. I think also, in addition, the fact that there will be more money available in the economy because of the increased disposable income, because of the changes in the direct tax rate that was declared, that kind of becomes a headline that there is no tax till about 12 lakhs, enables a larger market to be created for these MSMEs and startups. So clearly, everything seems to be positive. Also, many of the things will be work in progress, obviously. It depends on how well the ambitions of the government are actually executed over the next 8 to 10 months. But whatever has been said in the budget is all very positive.
Let me quickly also get in Wing Commander Sudhakaran now. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, your overall sense of the budget, also in particular for job creation, employment generation, was there enough in today's budget? For the MSME startup sector, very, very important sector, of course, in our country. The Prime Minister has often spoken about how he wants, individuals to become job givers and not just job takers. In that sense, this sector plays a very key role. How important were today's announcements then for this sector?
Good evening, Uday, and good evening to all the viewers. So on the personal front, yes, there's a welcome relief on the income tax side. They have tried to put more money into the end users so that the consumption gets spurred up from the retail level. But having said that, the MSME promises, I'm largely skeptical because I will not take the word for it. They've been doing it for the last 10 years, but having gone to the last mile and having checked it out myself, I was hugely, hugely disappointed because talking is one thing, but the government doesn't walk it. It doesn't know how to walk. That's the problem. It's just tumbles and falls down, and then you find a new promise. Like, for example, SIDBI is one of its arms, but you go to SIDBI, they will tell you that they don't have a due diligence arm. They simply, in fact, their top level managers have admitted that that's a flaw. Now, how long does it take for you to fix it? You can say, I can give you 10,000 crores, but you don't spend it. Then what do I do with it? The National AI Mission was committed 1 lakh crores. Where did that money go? What did we make out of it? Now, today we are talking about procuring GPUs for 10,000 crores. We've not procured it, and it's going to take another 2 years. And 2 years is like 200 years in AI as on date. The biggest mistake, and I have to point to you on this, I've written a LinkedIn post on this. The government has announced 500 crores on a center of excellence. That's the biggest blunder that you can commit. Because you, on the one hand, say that you don't have money to spend, and you spend it fragmented ways. And where did you choose to invest it? You choose to invest it on a center of excellence. I'll point out where the problem is. See, when you say I'm going to invest 500 crores, you are again going to invest it either in hardware or real estate or in people, right? So most of that money is going to go in hardware. By the time it gets installed and commissioned, that hardware is going to get mostly obsolete. The second thing is, for operating these complex systems, you need very nuanced, very talented skill set. And that skill set, if at all they're even capable, they're not going to come and work in the academia for the money that you're going to pay. Now, add to these two problems, what kind of return on investment that is going to get. My point here is, converge all your investment. Every penny is important for India. I understand that. We have a problem. When you have a problem, you don't spend like this. You spend in the right area, you pick the right courses. You should have put that in design. You don't put it in training when you don't have a design in place. You are all over the place. And that's the flaw. You don't know how to spend your money. You don't know how to implement. It is nice to say, I've created a fund of funds. But how are you going to implement it? The implementation is woefully miserable. You ask the startups, the large chunk of startups today are in the software sector. They're not even funded. The banks don't give them fund. You go to the bank, they say, sir, we don't know how to evaluate you. When you say your software costs X amount of rupees, I don't know how, because the bankers are simply clueless. They are not technologists. So therefore, they say you go to a VC arm. Now, the VC world is a very different world. Now, if the VC does a due diligence on you and they're willing to fund you, I don't need to support the banks. Then what is the government talking about? There are many other schemes. They appear to be good on face, but the moment you get inside them, I bet any of you, it's nice to talk on TV studios to say, oh, this is wonderful, that is wonderful. Go sit across the bench and try to get a check signed from them. You're not getting it. And the last that I have to tell you is the rate of interest. You know how much even your government banks, which is charging the lowest charge an MSME, it's upwards of 13%. Now 13% plus 18% GST, it's a killer on you. Because when you get them, and there is no liquidity flow as far as GST is concerned for the small firms. And I'll tell you one more scam. There is a 7 years, they say, there's a startup tax holiday for the startups. You get inside, they say, it is 3 years. And even in that 3 years, when it comes to filing your tax, there is a minimum alternative tax of 15 plus 3% cess, which means 18% corporate tax you have to pay. So what is the rebate that you're getting? 7%. Are you joking? That's why I tell the government, don't tax the seed, tax the tree. Make the seed grow into a tree, let it fruit. Then you tax them. You will be able to get more than what you invested.
Okay.
But
point
there
taken.
is
Let
no
me take that
handholding.
across very quickly to Nasir Salim as well. Nasir Salim, we've seen, of course, some very, very, big announcements today, of course, particularly focusing now on the MSME and startup sector. What do you make of, what this budget, of course, has envisioned for them with these, with the ambit now being raised, of course, for classification of small enterprises, medium enterprises as well, and more companies now falling in this ambit. Is that going to provide a further boost to this sector? Also, as far as startups are concerned, and now the further boost for them, hopefully, will this ensure enough jobs are generated and the rate of job creation goes up in the next 1 year?
Good evening, Uday. Thank you very much. Great to be back on your show. So, 2-3 things clearly. Number one, I think, this budget overall seems to have addressed one of the largest concerns of the middle income group, which is to say that, they've been taxed for the last so many years, and they remain to be taxed as heavily as compared to some of the other what should I say? The other individuals who drive or run the economy. But I think it's obviously bodes really well for consumption. Uday, clearly, I mean there is no doubt on that. And for sectors such as everything that falls under broad-based consumption, whether it's fast-moving consumer goods, you had the Amul MD earlier. Come in and say that. I think I completely agree with him. FMCG, you can look at retail, look at automobiles, you look at some of broader consumer durables, all white and brown goods. All of these sectors seem to have been a big beneficiary of this announcement, which is also reflective in some of the indices that moved up post the announcement in the budget. Now, obviously, you're infusing more liquidity. You are leaving, more personal disposable income, which will, create and end up in that consumption boost. And I think more important than that, Uday, it's the sentiment that, drives a lot of positivity. I think the other thing also imminent now is that on account of this, inflation as an animal seems to be in control, and RBI. It is more, important for the RBI to take cognizant of what is happening, and then look at possible rate cuts, which will indirectly or directly have private participation come in terms of private expenditure, and therefore this entire cycle of production consumption should start. One area where I feel, Uday, since you raised that point, one area that I feel where I didn't see any roadmap clearly was on one example that I want to talk about in your show is if you look at corporate profitability in the last 12 months. If I look at calendar year, if I look at calendar year 24, you will see that corporate profit gone all-time high, right? But real wages have actually gone below pre-pandemic levels. Now, that tells you a very different story. It tells you that the lowest income group is not being able to meet inflationary issues, more so on account of food price inflation. This food price inflation remains a challenge even now. And then with real wages not picking up, will also, also has its own challenges in terms of its impact. And therefore unemployment. So I think the point that you raised on employment I think the roadmap for decreasing unemployment or increasing employment has not been mentioned in this budget. There has been no discussion on that. Yes, there is a lot of fiscal prudence, which is evident. They are saying that they will be able to meet to the estimate of 4.4% of fiscal budget for this financial year, which is a positive, no doubt. That again bodes really well for the overall some of these consumption boost sectors, and also for certain interest rate sensitive sectors like the NBFC, right? But I think your core question on employment remains unanswered, in my opinion. I think this real wages is a real challenge, Uday. I think we need to do more, think out of the box, to ensure that those unemployment numbers start to inch down. And I don't think, if you ask me directly or indirectly, I don't think because of this re-rationalization of taxation slabs will that get employment. I doubt that, right? What I do feel is that it's going to definitely impact consumption in a positive way, which is favorable. It's definitely an added benefit. And I think from a sentiment perspective, it adds a lot of positivity, especially to the capital markets. As I told you, the sectors that I just mentioned
Yes.
will be its direct beneficiaries.
Okay. Gautam Mukherjee, quickly drawing you in here now. Now, Gautam Mukherjee, there is a need, of course, for providing further employment opportunities for the youth of our country, and also ensuring that the pace of job creation speeds up. In that view and direction, how important and crucial were today's announcements in the budget?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious, not only in this country, but in almost all high population countries, that job creation, either in the public sector or in the private sector, particularly combined with the technological advances that are necessary to incorporate, are not going to keep up with the actual influx of people who need jobs. So I think what the government is doing, and rightly so, is they've provided a plethora of loans and enablers to all sectors in, whether it's agriculture, whether it's poor people, whether it's women entrepreneurs, whether it's startups, small businessmen, to generate their own income and, in fact, provide employment, small employment perhaps, to others. The other thing is, if you look at the example of other countries, I will liken it to, an aircraft carrier group. The Japanese, the big hongs in Japan are the ones that brought up many small and medium enterprises alongside. But they are the people with the lawyers and the analysts and the economists and the management people to negotiate the red tape and get the loans and get it all working smoothly. They have the resources, they have the time, they have the muscle. You cannot expect, as one of the panelists was saying, the small people are just not up to it. They cannot, as it is, you've got to be cook, bottle washer, and entrepreneur, and doorman all in one when you are a small businessman. Now, that is daunting enough without having to deal with a government which is like a monolith that never tires, never dies, never goes away, and is all powerful. So it's only the bigger companies that can deal with these people and provide an umbrella formation for the smaller companies to work alongside. It's the same in defense, which is being emphasized a lot now. It's the same in manufacturing, this China Plus One business, ancillaries, wherever, to think of this in a disparate silo is I think a mistake, and it's got to be a conglomeration of the big and the small together in order to provide both the muscle and the employment and the security that the whole sector needs. And if you look at China's example, it's the small that becomes big in due course. If you look at our own stock market, people are forever trying to discover the right small cap stock that will become medium cap, and then eventually maybe even large cap. Now, small cap is not what it used to be. And MSME is not what it used to be. It's not a few lakhs anymore. Even the tiniest are in crores. So everything is moving up the ladder and needs to work in in combination. Uday.
Okay, let me in fact quickly now turn our focus to another big emphasis and big push made today in the budget. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman did present, of course, today's budget, in which 6.8 lakh crore rupees was allocated for the defense sector for the upcoming fiscal year. Now, this amount accounts for approximately 1.91% of India's estimated gross domestic product. It also represents a 9.5% increase from the previous year's budget. Meanwhile, a significant portion of this allocation has been earmarked for bolstering India's military capabilities via indigenous production. In fact, 1.8 lakh crores has been set aside under the capital budget for the acquisition of new defense equipment, including weapons, aircrafts, warships, as well as more. Let's quickly give you a sense of what the big announcements were as far as the defense sector is concerned in today's Union Budget 2025. So an outlay of 6.81 lakh crores was set aside today. Of course, that's the total amount. The capital outlay was 1.8 lakh crore rupees to be specific. And if we quickly, of course, move on. Let's quickly move on to the next slide if we can, which obviously is giving us a sense of the defense budget allocations, which of course is very, very significant. And here we are of course showing you how it's changed over the years. So obviously from 24, you can see what the what it was in 23, what it was in 22, now what it was in 2021. So every year you can clearly see, of course, through this slide that there has been a significant increase in the capital outlay, as well as of course the total allocation for the budget. This is what it stood at in 2020. So significant increase. And if we talk about the percentage increase from last year till this year, it is 9.5%, which is of course again another significant rise. Can we take this from the top? Let's just go back to the previous slide if we can, of defense announcements. If we can go back to the previous slide. Okay, we've gone too further. Let's just go up a bit. Then we get some more announcements, of course, and specifics of those. We are again showing you. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so 6.22 lakh crore rupees has been allocated to the Ministry of Defense, the highest amongst all ministries as well. That is again a big takeaway, of course, of today's budget. The capital acquisition, it stands at 1.72 lakh crore rupees for the acquisition of modern defense equipment. So obviously that's the need of the hour. This is the money that's been, the capital outlay that's been laid out for it. 75% of this will be allocated for domestic procurement. That is again a big thrust on Make in India, Atmanirbharta for the defense sector as well. Operational readiness, as far as this is concerned, 92,088 crore rupees has been put aside for sustenance and operational preparedness as well of our military. Also, defense pensions, 1.41 lakh crore rupees being allocated for defense pensions, benefiting around 32 lakh pensioners as well. Again, a very significant amount. Also, ECHS, that's ex-serviceman contribution health scheme, 6,968 crore rupees being allocated to improve healthcare for veterans, which again marks a 28% rise from what it was last year. As far as border infrastructure is concerned, 6,500 crore rupees for development of border roads has also been set aside. And as far as coastal security also goes, 7,651 crore rupees has been allocated to the Indian Coast Guard for enhancing maritime security as well. And 23,855 crores for the DRDO, 518 crore rupees allocated to IDEX, that's acing development of innovative technologies. That's also something that was significant in this budget. Also, as far as strategic projects goes, funding for projects like the Neuma airfield in Ladakh, the Shinku La tunnel and the Nechipu tunnel, that's also something that's of course gone up. The self-reliance in defense as well, boosting indigenous defense production under Atmanirbharta initiative. That also was again a big focus of what the finance minister said today. Shipbuilding, benefits for the shipbuilding stocks as 25,000 crore Maritime Development Fund was also allocated today. Obviously, that did lead to stock rally for the shipbuilding stocks as well. So, big boost for the defense sector, something that again is being welcomed by multiple analysts. And let's quickly get in Wing Commander Sudhakaran's take on that. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, what do you make of what the budget had in store for the defense sector?
Expensive preposition. So if you actually look at the 10% increase, that's par for the course. As it is, we are spending much lesser than what a country of our size actually demands, considering the neighbors are Pakistan and China. They are breathing down fire down your throat, though China seems to have mellowed because of, thanks to Trump in a lot of ways. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had it so easy. Though China has given us some time, we must not take it for granted that it will be peace forever in that region. So given the realities of the geopolitics in the eastern side, we have to really prepare ourselves, and there are a lot of capital procurements. We all know about the 160 odd the fighter jets that needs to be procured. The due diligence is already underway. There's discussion, and we cannot wait for too long to procure it because the number of squadrons are coming down. And so is the naval fleet. Approximately 25 to 30,000 odd crore is already planned for this year under various expansion of the naval fleet. Add to this the requirements of the army, you will really realize that we will be falling short of even this budget. Though it might look substantial, as I already said, the modernization is not really progressing at the pace that the defense would like it to be. But as long as the peace prevails, because the West is on the western border, we have Pakistan, which is caught in its own turmoil, and China, which is now, revisiting its entire strategy of, India vis-a-vis, that of the Americans, and it is caught in a new trade war. So we may have a couple of years to breathe easy, but then we should not breathe easy. We must ensure that we make most of this time that we have for ourselves, and then we build our men and equipment to the level that is required. If there is a conflict that will come after a couple of years or maybe 5. But we need to be prepared at all times. And this is a small effort, I would say. Wouldn't say a significant effort, considering that there is a significant increase in payout on codage of pension and pay and allowances. And mind you, we are also hinting at going into the next pay commission, which also means a significant cost to the exchequer in terms of salaries. So all put together, I think this is par for the course, not even par for the course, it's slightly below, but then that's what you have. You can't have money on all the plates. So I think the finance minister knows it better. It's very easy for us to comment on all these things. But then I think she must have done whatever maximum is possible on that front.
Yes, a significant increase, Gautam Mukherjee, from, of course, last year. We've seen also, of course, money for the veterans funds being increased as well from what it was last year. Your overall sense of, the defense sector announcements and component of today's budget. Also, Gautam Mukherjee, the focus on Make in India for defense, Atmanirbharta, domestic procurement also coming out with what was said today, wasn't it?
Well, I think it's very encouraging and quite in keeping with the Modi government's incremental approach. Every year, we do a little bit more in terms of, what we can according to the cloth that we have. As far as Atmanirbharta goes, there are some glaring strategic issues. For example, engines for fighter aircraft, engines for ships, engines across the board, where we have not so far been able to crack the idea of making it ourselves in joint venture over here. Now, I think we are finally waking up to it, this buying outright. The Biden administration has seen to it that we didn't get the GE engines at all during its entire tenure. Now that Trump has come, perhaps these engines will flow. Meanwhile, the Tejas program is building on all the other aspects of it as best as it can. So, we do not only have to do Atmanirbharta as is the only real way out for strategic independence, but we also have to address the critical, this is the heart of a aircraft. This new small tank we made, everything, the transmission, the engine are American. I mean, we could not make this ourselves, and this is what we have to address and take care of in the near future. Sure, we're going 50, 60, 70, 80% indigenous, but they tend to be for the componentry which is less critical. I'm not knocking it. It's better than nothing. And we've got exports going, particularly in BrahMos and Pinaka, and that's excellent too, as well as small things but important things like bulletproof vests, in which we excel, as it turns out. So down the road, if we can crack these critical componentry by not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but collaborating seriously with somebody so that we are able to do this in country now and improve on it gradually, as we have with many of the Soviet things that we have collaborated on.
Okay, let me quickly, in fact, draw in Dr. Bhattacharya for a quick comment on this, Dr. Bhattacharya, because the fact, of course, very clearly is that the allocations also for this sector, very, very crucial defense sector, of course, the outlay, of course, being increased. We've seen that steady increase from 2020 to 2025, as I explained earlier, in the graphics that I put out. But we're seeing this allocation happen very strategically. Subtle focus everywhere on the Atmanirbhar aspect of it, on the domestic procurement, domestic manufacturing, but also maritime security, the strategic projects, particularly the border road projects that we've been seeing of late as well. Also, a lot of outlay for the DRDO sector for more research and innovation as well.
Let me start with the headline figure that there has been a roughly 9% increase in allocation to defense. Actually, as percentage of GDP, it stays roughly the same. It was about 2% of GDP or 1.8% of GDP last year. It's 1.9% of the GDP this year. Because the GDP has grown, so the allocation has also grown. Having said that, let's also look at what are we up against. Why do we spend in defense? Because we have specified adversaries. If you look at China, they're spending $300 billion. Whereas if we look at our spend is about roughly $75 billion, there is a lot that needs to be caught upon if we really want to match. Clearly, from a defense perspective, again, it's the people who run the defense who knows how much of exposure India has. So I'll not go into the details of it. But just in terms of comparison, the US budget is over 900 billion, almost touching $1 trillion is what the US budget is. And if India wants to be a superpower, then somehow we do need to ensure that we've got a strong military, which also means that we need to ensure that there is more budgetary allocation. Having said that, again, every dollar that India spends, if it's spent on indigenous procurement, we will be able to get much more out of that dollar than, let's say, a US army. Because our dollar stretches more, our indigenously manufactured goods are cheaper, and therefore we can stretch the dollar more when we allocate money indigenously. And that's exactly what the budget has done. It pushes the military to go for more indigenous manufacturing. And that's one part of it. It also presumes that the military industrial infrastructure that India has is strong and is getting strengthened year on year, for which you will see in tandem there has been a reduction in BCD on things like critical minerals, which happened this year, but also last year. There was about 2.5% on, let's say, molybdenum. Now, molybdenum is very critical for the nozzles of the BrahMos missile, for the steel used in the hull of the submarines and the battleships, and so on and so forth. So, by reducing these BCDs, what the finance minister has done is it has strengthened the indigenous defense supply chains, made them more resilient, given them a level playing field, and therefore ensured that they can supply to the military as and when required. Especially the nature of wars has changed, as we see most of the conflicts globally are long ranging conflicts rather than the short conflicts that had been presumed to be the future of warfare for some time. In reality, what we see, the Ukraine war, the Gaza war, the wars in Africa, they're all long stretched wars, which means that we really need to have our military industrial complex to be able to supply all the military goods that are needed, because they'll keep getting depleted. Now, if you're dependent on foreign goods, no matter what they are, be it airplanes, be it ships, be it guns, be it cartridges, be it carbines, they will soon run out and we can then face embargoes. And that's what will bring our military down. We'll be down on our knees because we do not have supply chain resilience. And that's a larger picture that the finance budget is trying to do, is to ensure that we are Atmanirbhar in defense through multiple interventions, and not just in terms of giving a larger allocation to military.
Okay, point taken. I'm afraid I've run completely out of time, so I'm going to have to leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. Let's slip into a very short break.
4,91,91,000